If you're anything like me, you grew up playing games on the legendary Nintendo 64. This console was unique in so many ways, with its cartridge system for games, its much maligned Trident controller, the hot swappable expansion pack required to play some games that increased the memory of the system, and the controller pack for saving games. And if you're anything like me, you've reached a stage in your life where you want to pull back out the N64 and relive some of those childhood memories. So, you take a look at what you already have on hand. You celebrate when you see your TV can accept composite video. Plug in your N64, plug in your favorite cartridge, and something's not right. The image looks over-sharpened and the colors are off. Maybe it's just your age, but you sense a lot of input lag. One of your controller packs isn't registering any data on it, and your Ocarina of Time saves are nowhere to be found. And that's when it hits you. The N64, and the technology that powered it, is 30 years old. This experience is fine for a nostalgia trip, but if you're anything like me, you were hoping to get back into N64 gaming, not just play a session here or there. So you research and you try emulation, but it's finicky, it can be illegal, and game speeds just don't match what you remember. It's super taxing on your computer, and it just doesn't look or feel right. So you resign yourself to trying to find a way to get your original hardware N64 up and running with today's technology, and that's probably how you stumbled on this video. If that describes you, you are exactly the person I made this video for. I'll show you how I accomplished my goal of getting my bare metal original N64 hardware from console, controllers, packs, and carts working with today's technology, and some changes I made based on things I learned along the way. Now let me tell you what this video isn't. There are many ways to accomplish an authentic N64 experience, but I personally was not interested in hardware emulation like the Mister, which can replicate the N64 using FPGA to match its exact clock speeds and provide an authentic N64 feel. I also wasn't interested in moving to a modern controller style. While both of these are great for arcades and enthusiasts, I just wanted to get my current hardware up and running and preserve my childhood N64 experience. The first step was figuring out how I could take the composite video from my N64 and get it into my TV without incurring a latency penalty. From my experience and my research, using the composite inputs on the back of my TV was not an option, due to bad image processing, upscaling, and latency, so I'd be looking for a composite to HDMI converter. While there are many available on Amazon, most of those are designed for old VCRs and video playback, not for gaming, and thus incur between a quarter to over half a second of video latency. Not to mention, the quality of their upscaling is often terrible. That's when I stumbled across Retro RGB's channel, who introduced me to RetroTink, a company focused on creating upscalers for retro gaming that not only look good, but also incur less than a tenth of a second of latency when converting retro console signals to HDMI. While they have many great options in the high end for true upscaling of 240i to 1080p or even 4K and higher, all I was looking for was basic compatibility of my N64 with modern TVs and monitors, so I went with the RetroTink 2X Mini, a scanline converter that comes with 2 comb filter modes, a smoothing filter, and even a well-shielded Nintendo to S video cable included in the box. If you'd like to learn more about all the features for the RetroTink 2X Mini, I'll leave a link in the description to RetroRGB's video on the device. He even goes into detail as to why the S video cable is included and why you should use it over your old ketchup and mustard cables your N64 probably came with. Now, if all you wanted was to get your N64 working with modern displays, you're all set. But I would suggest watching on, because there are some things I learned in my research that are time sensitive if you want to keep your save games into the future and not see them disappear like my Ocarina of Time save did. The N64 had quite a few different save methods over its 6-year sales period. Some games saved your state to the cartridge itself via onboard chips that are solid state, but others, such as Ocarina of Time, used a coin battery-powered memory bank on the cartridge. Most games, however, utilize the purchasable controller pack, which is also powered by a coin battery. These coin batteries have an estimated lifespan of 25 years. Starting to see the problem? We're already 5 years past that for release day systems, so if you still have mempacks with save data on them, they are truly on life support, and you should take action quickly if you want to save them. The mempacks and controller are obviously not USB, so we need to find a different way to not only connect the controller or mempack to a computer, but in a way that the computer will recognize that there's data present, and then also find a way to read that data once it's been transferred to our computer. There are many options to choose from as far as connecting your carts to the computer, but only a handful of options connect your original N64 controllers and read their mempacks, and even fewer can do both. Remember Ocarina of Time? The option I found that did not require any additional software installation was the BenVen Joey N64. It's a USB-C powered device with no power switch and not really the strongest USB-C port, so I personally use my Sabrent powered USB hub that has switches for each port to connect the Joey to my PC, but you should be fine just unplugging and replugging a few times. Let's start with the controllers because they're the most straightforward. With the Joey unplugged, plug in an N64 controller to the Joey. Then plug the Joey into your computer or turn on that USB port, and you should see a new drive pop up labeled BenVen. Opening this drive, you will see a series of files. Open the mode.txt file and ensure the first line is PAK to read the controller's mempack data. If it's not, make it so and save the file. The Joey should then disconnect and reconnect to your computer. Next, open the debug.txt. At the bottom of the file, you should see memory pack enabled access through save.mpk. MPK files are the most common mempack files used by the retro community to store the entire contents of a mempack. Further on, or possibly at the top, my debug file has a text wrapping bug, you will see, for an online save editor, try Bryce's GitHub/mempack. This link will get you to an online tool which you can download and host locally if you so desire, following the GitHub link at the top right, that is designed to read and write MPK files and note files. Note files are individual game or save files that are found within MPK files. Now simply drag your save.mpk file from the BenVen directory onto the MPK edit page. It'll take a few seconds, but if your mempack has been showing data in games or the N64 mempack management screen on your cartridge, you should see a series of notes appear on the screen. From here, I highly suggest hitting the save button at the top of the screen and making a copy of the entire mempack, or simply copying the MPK from the BenVen directory and saving it to your computer, which is what I did. Next, I recommend saving each of the notes individually. This is so we can update our mempack memory or restore it with the notes of our choosing in the future. Once you've done this, you can turn off or disconnect the Joey and swap to your next mempack and repeat the process. Once you've done that for all your mempacks, you now have a repository of MPK and note files representing each mempack and each save. Okay, cool. But now what do we do with those? If you're wondering about using these in emulation, even though it's not the purpose of this video, I will cover that towards the end, but for those of us wanting to continue using these saves with bare metal N64 hardware, we have two options. The first option is to replace the coin battery in our original mempacks, which will wipe the drive, but then will give them another 25 years of life. That's a fine and affordable option if you think that's all the time you'll need, or you want to keep repeating the process, but I think this next process is a little better. The other option is an item called the Forever Paks 64 from 4Layer Technologies. This is a mempack that fits right into the original N64 controller and behaves exactly the same way, but instead of being coin battery maintained, the saves are placed on an FRAM chip, which is solid-state memory that will last until the background radiation of the universe scrambles the data sometime next millennium. I went with the Forever Paks 64 route, and since none of my original mempacks were full, I used the MPK edit software to take my notes and created MPK files with just the games I wanted the saves for stored on there. I saved this, connected the Forever Paks 64 to my controller, plugged in the Joey N64, then made a copy of the new MPK file and named it the exact name of the MPK file on the BenVen directory, then overwrote the Forever Pak MPK with my new one. And just like that, I've got my original N64 saves from my original Paks saved in a way that will not disappear within my lifetime and accessible to the N64. Alright, now for the cart saves, and this is where things get a little complicated and you have some big decisions to make. To be straightforward, while you can copy the saves off of carts with the Joey N64, replace the batteries in the cart, then add them back on like the Paks, there's no way to modify a cart to have solid-state storage when it originally had coin battery-sustained SRAM, even with soldering. So if you want to go with purely original hardware, that's your only option. However, maybe you're like me, and while you truly are nostalgic for the old days, you're willing to admit that the process of swapping carts on the N64 was a bit of a pain, not to mention when the contacts would get old and dirty, and you definitely did not blow on them to get them working again. And you're looking for a modern alternative to this old practice. You know all about emulation, but the legal gray area of third-party ROMs and the inaccuracies of the experience compared to the original hardware is just too much to give up. What do? This is where a flashcart comes into play. Flashcarts are N64 cartridges that fit right into your original N64 console, but have a mini SD card that can hold tons of ROMs, and that mini SD card has the benefit of being solid-state storage that won't go bad on you. I personally went with a Summercart 64 cartridge. Summercart 64 is an open-source flashcart project that provides PCB specs for a flashcart, allowing anyone with the proper expertise and attribution to build one of these and either use it or sell it. It works in conjunction with the open-source N64 flashcart menu project on GitHub, which provides a solid menu experience for you to browse and load ROMs right from your N64. Now, I bought my cartridge off of AliExpress, but after doing more research, I would have happily paid more for a cartridge from a supplier supported by the Summercart devs, but I didn't find out about them until after my initial purchase. Now hold on, I hear you saying. Don't these flashcarts have the exact same performance and legal problems as emulation? Not quite. First off, ROMs loaded onto a flashcart are loaded directly into the cartridge's memory when selected, then played directly on the console's hardware. This means that while a flashcart has a game loaded and is playing it, the console doesn't know the difference between the flashcart's version of the game and the original cart the ROM came from. This means it performs just as awfully and with just as much frame lag and clock slowdown as the original. Ah, nostalgia. Second, while many flashcarts come packaged with a ton of illegally sold ROMs, if you bought the Joey N64, you now have the benefit of not needing them. You can straight up delete them from the SD card if you so desire, because I'm about to teach you how to create your own legally preserved ROMs from your own legally purchased original cartridges. Remember that we are doing this specifically for the purposes of preserving and archiving our legally purchased N64 cartridges. Should you choose to distribute this to anyone, for any reason, you're incurring the wrath of the Nintendo gods, and may God have mercy on your sinful soul. Alright, unplug the Joey N64 from your computer, then the N64 controller from your Joey, then plug a cart into the Joey following the directions for the label direction printed on the case and ensuring the cartridge is centered over the connector. Plug back in your Joey and go to the benven directory. Go back to mode.txt and change the first line to Z64, the container most used today to store N64 ROMs. If you purchased an EverDrive flashcart specifically, use the Z64ED option. Save the file, then wait for the Joey to reconnect. Open the debug.txt, and here you can check the firmware of the Joey, as well as a series of diagnostic readouts that can help you confirm if your cartridge is genuine. That info can help you determine if the Joey is detecting your game correctly. If everything looks good, we can move on to the other files. Let's start with the save file. N64 cartridges utilize 3 different save file types. .fla or flash memory, this is the least common. .eep or EEPROM memory, this is the most common. And then .sra or coin battery sustained SRAM memory, this is for things like Ocarina of Time. Take the save file that will be present in one of those formats and save it to your computer. We'll worry about renaming it in a sec. For the game files themselves, the N64 game files are packaged in the Z64 file format as we specified in the mode.txt file. Grab the Z64 file and save it to your computer. This is going to take a while because the Joey is not the fastest unit in the world, but once it's done, rename the ROM to whatever you'd like. Then, and this is the most important step, copy that exact name and rename the save file from that cart to the exact same name with the proper save file extension. This will come in handy later when we're trying to tie the save file to the ROM in the flashcart or emulation. Now disconnect the Joey, unseat your cart, and rinse and repeat for your other carts in your collection. When you're done, you'll have a collection of legally purchased and transferred ROMs and your original saves from your childhood. Just remember, important note, these ROMs are specifically for your own archival purposes only. If you distribute these or give them to anyone, you are breaking the law. They are only allowed for personal use for the purposes of archival media. Next up is getting these onto your flash cart. At this stage, these instructions become specific to the Summer Cart 64, as that's what I have, so keep that in mind. In the side of your flash cart, find the SD card and remove it. Most flash carts come packaged with an SD card reader, so place the SD card into the reader and plug this into your PC. Do not do this on a Mac. The secret files that Mac OS adds to the directories can break the file system of the Summer Cart, requiring a reformatting of the SD card. Alright, once the SD card is connected to your PC, take this time to go to the N64 flashcart menu GitHub in the description and grab the latest sc64menu.n64 file and replace the one in the root directory of the SD card with the newest version. Next, go to or create a folder for your N64 games. You can create subfolders here if you so choose for later use in the Summer Cart menu, or just put all your ROMs in one place. Now, copy over your legally created ROMs here. Next, create a folder called Saves, all lowercase. Go back to your cart saves, not your mempacks or notes, and make a new folder for Summer Cart 64 saves, and copy all of the original saves, and then rename all of those copies to have the .sav extension, regardless of what their original extension was. This is the extension that Summer Cart expects to find saves in. Remember, the saves should have the same file name as the ROMs exactly, and then the .sav extension. Otherwise, they will not be properly attributed to the correct ROM. Once you've done this, transfer over the saves to the saves folder on the SD card, and you're good to go. One other step you could take, especially if you're wanting to play Animal Crossing on your flash cart, is to set the RTC clock for the Summer Cart 64. I'll put a link to the instructions on how to do this for your Summer Cart 64 in the description. Now, safely eject your SD card and plug it back into your flash cart. With that done, it's time to put everything together. Take your original console and remove the composite cable from the back and replace it with the S-Video cable provided by RetroTink. Plug the S-Video cable into the RetroTink. If you plan to route your RetroTink into a computer monitor that doesn't have sound, or you want to utilize an external DAC like I do, split out the RCA connections from the S-Video and plug them into your DAC or an RCA to 3.5mm Y cable and into the sound device of your choice. Set your RetroTink's comb filter to auto. Plug an HDMI cable into your RetroTink. Plug the HDMI cable into your TV, monitor, or capture card. Place the Summer Cart 64 cartridge into your N64. Insert the Forever Pack 64 into your N64 controller. Plug your N64 controller into your N64. And turn on your N64. Now, you may not see any picture the first time and see an LED flashing on the Summer Cart. Simply power cycle, don't reset, but power cycle your N64, and you should see the Summer Cart menu pop up. Next, navigate to your N64 folder, load a ROM, and you should be off to the races. There are other things you could do to improve your bare metal N64 experience. Grabbing an OEM N64 expansion pack is one of them, if it's required by one of the games you own and you don't already own the expansion pack. Also, if your N64 controller thumbsticks are getting tired, or you just don't like the Trident controller, there are options for improvement. A company called Kitchbent sells controller stick replacement kits that, with a little bit of elbow grease and actual grease, can restore some life into your OEM's controller sticks. I didn't really like the feel of the final product myself, so your mileage may vary, but this is really the only affordable, non-waitlisted option to improve the feel of your original hardware. Stay far away from aftermarket Tridents, as they're often horribly calibrated and still don't have a good stick feel. There are some drop-in stick replacements that apparently feel pretty good and are calibrated well, but they will have the same wear issues as the original sticks over time, so be wary. As far as getting away from the Trident controllers, many good things are said about the Retrofighter controllers, and they come with wireless options if you want to add back in some input latency after you spent over $100 getting rid of it. If you're looking to spice up your N64 games with some new experiences, you can look into some ROM hacks that take a legal copy of your legal original ROM and modify it to add new features. Some of my favorites are Smash Remix and Mario Kart Amped Up, but to be honest, they just aren't as refined as the original games, so I'm not as much of a fan of them. Finally, let's talk emulation. The ROMs you save from your original carts should load up easily into any N64 emulator. As far as the saves are concerned, for the cart saves, just copy the process from moving them to the flashcart, ensuring that they're in the proper save format for your emulator and in the proper folder where your emulator expects saves to be. For mempack saves, it's a little more complicated. Run the ROM that the mempack save is for, then go to the saves folder for your emulator and drop the generated save file into MPK Edit. It should pop up with a mempack image of the emulated save. Replace the existing note in the MPK with your original mempack note, save the file as the emulator's expected save format, and boot up your ROM, and you should have access to your original mempack save on your emulator. And that's it. Now you can play all your old games with saves that won't erase themselves without needing to swap cartridges, and you can even play them via emulation without a guilty conscience. Hopefully you found all of this useful, and this got you from your TV's poor composite processing and worried about your save files to latency-free, well-crafted visuals and peace of mind about your save data, all on your bare metal original N64 hardware. Now to close, this was a one-off project as I wanted to catalog what I'd learned in creating my own personal modernized bare metal N64 setup, so I feel it's disingenuous of me to ask you to like and subscribe as I rarely create content on YouTube. But if you like what you see and you want to learn more about retro gaming, I do suggest giving Retro RGB a look, as his channel is full of useful information around how to get the most out of your retro gaming experience. I really do hope you enjoyed this video and you learned a lot, and hopefully our paths will cross again soon. But until then, have a great time playing your revitalized N64.